Africa Talks. Has the Horn averted disaster? Welcome to Africa Talks, a platform to discuss with facts the ground reality and in real time to address or rebut what is being provided in the mainstream media. We speak with experts on or from Africa and with individuals that the mainstream media fails to provide a voice to. We can be direct and provocative, but underlying our work is a mission to find and speak to the heart and truth of the matter. Today, we'll be speaking on the alleged genocide and atrocities in the region of Tigray in Ethiopia. We have experts, journalists, and friends of the region with us today. We'll start with addressing the heavy allegations that have been recycled in our media. First, of Eritrea being the key perpetrator of the atrocities. Next, we'll examine the ground reality in Ethiopia. And finally, friends and journalists of Eritrea will provide their perspective on the portrayal of the Horn of Africa in our Western media. Anyone who's been following the region's politics, especially since April 2018, cannot be left in any doubt that the media cannot be trusted to provide a comprehensive and true account of culpability and acts on the ground. The Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Dr. Abiy Ahmed, was chosen to lead Ethiopia in April 2018. He received the Nobel Peace Prize for his efforts in resolving the 30-year conflict between Eritrea and Ethiopia. And in his speech, he commended the peace efforts also to the president of Eritrea, Isaias Afwerki. Together, they have been working hard towards bringing peace to a very troubled region, the Horn of Africa, and away from regressive and repressive Western geopolitics, the very geopolitical interests that today could be directly responsible for destabilizing the Horn and plunging it into civil wars. The situation in Tigray has been described as dire by our International Development Committee. There have been severe human rights abuses where rape has been used as a weapon of war, looting, pillaging, and destruction of property. And furthermore, blame was laid on the occupying Eritrea forces for what's happening. So today we'll be talking about Eritrea, Ethiopia, the TPLF, and genocide. Has the Horn averted disaster? And with us we have Mr. Yafet Zereou, a writer and analyst expert on the Horn of Africa. He will be speaking on and rebutting the broad allegations that Eritrea had a key part to play in the atrocities in the Tigray region of Ethiopia. Next, we have Mr. Zelalem Tessema, a development economist. He has followed closely Ethiopian politics and has been an activist for human rights and social justice for the last 15 years and played a part in the political change in Ethiopia in 2018. Then we have Mr. Martin Zimmerman. He's a friend of Eritrea and an independent journalist since the 80s. He has extensive experience of the ground reality in Eritrea. Finally, and just as importantly, we have Mr. John Graversgaard, a long-time friend of Eritrea, and since independence, and he has visited Eritrea at least 14 times, if not more. He has an in-depth knowledge about the history and the wars and the conflict in the region. So let's begin with you, Mr. Yafet Zereou. Yafet, I'd like to, and for the benefit of the audience who are at the behest of the information war on the conflict, start with our first question. And from an Eritrean perspective, can you please provide us with an account of what happened in November 2020, the start of the conflict?
Thank you, Ruby, for giving me this opportunity to appear on the show and to express the Eritrean point of view, which has been subdued and which has been ignored in the mainstream media. As you touched upon, in 2018, when Prime Minister Abiy became leader of Ethiopia, he extended the arm of peace and accepted in full the Algiers Agreement, which was signed in 2000, which ended the border war, which was between Eritrea and Ethiopia, which had been ongoing between 1998 and 2000. And in accordance with the agreement, the Algiers Agreement, a border commission had been set up and a decision to outline to mark where the border was, determine where the border was, had been set up, and this border commission had delivered its verdict in 2002. But unfortunately, the TPLF-led Ethiopian government failed to accept this until Dr. Abiy had come to power in 2018, which meant that the 20-year stalemate between Eritrea and Ethiopia came to an end when they signed the peace agreement in July of 2018. There were great hopes when the peace agreement was signed, which meant that for the first time in 20 years, there would be peace between Eritrea and Ethiopia. And there would be not only be peace, but development, which had been missing, especially in the in Eritrea, because of the threat of war, which had been ongoing from Ethiopia. I mean, the last military attack from the TPLF-led Ethiopia, was in 2016. And that was about 2 years before Dr. Abiy came to power. And once Dr. Abiy came to power, expectations were very, very high. But unfortunately, the TPLF saw things differently. And the TPLF was not willing to be part of this, the peace process, despite the hand of peace being offered both by Dr. Abiy and by President Isaias of Eritrea. But no matter what they did, no matter what the peace overtures did, the TPLF was basically unwilling to be part of the peace process, to be part of the new era, and to be part of a bright future for the region. And the belligerence of the TPLF ended up in the TPLF attacking the Ethiopian army, the Ethiopian Northern Army Command, which was stationed in Tigray region of Ethiopia in November 2020. What needs to be addressed here and needs to be focused is that because of the history of the region, Ethiopia had placed around about 60 to 80% of its forces in the Tigray region, which borders Eritrea. This is a significant number. I think the number goes up to 35,000 strong. And it was this Northern Army Command that the TPLF attacked and tried to take over, which essentially means that the TPLF in November 2020 was trying to take over power in Ethiopia so that it would restore this, however, and the hopes of peace had been dashed by the TPLF attacking the northern command of the Ethiopian Army, Northern Command. So this was a very, very dangerous time for Eritrea. And as events showed in November of 2020, I think it was November 14, the TPLF launched no less than 16 rocket attacks, I think, over three days, or which targeted Asmara, the capital of Eritrea, and which also targeted heavily populated areas of the city. So in November, the Eritrean government, when the Ethiopian army was decimated by the TPLF forces, it had to evacuate the border region. This meant that a vacuum had been created in the region, in the border region, and that region had been heavily fortified, as the Prime Minister was saying in his statement to the Houses of Representatives in the capital Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. The fortifications are very, very. They had been built over 20 years, and they were if had the TPLF taken control of it, it had been very difficult to dislodge. And for the sake of the security of the state of Eritrea, the Eritrean armed forces took over only the fortifications along the border, which in fact meant that the TPLF was unable to circumnavigate the Ethiopian army and to capture these fortifications, which would have been a very devastating move for the whole entire region, which would have led to a great deal of bloodshed, a great deal of more turmoil than we actually seen. But it is unfortunate that in November, the TPLF chose to ignore the path of peace and inflict the war on the entire region, which was a very, very serious threat to the region, had not the Ethiopian army managed to recover and thwart the attacks of the TPLF.
Thank you for that, Yafet. And I'm going to go to the point of, anticipatory self-defense, which is what Tigray Region, a former spokesman of TPLF, alluded to, and many other representatives of the TPLF when they've been providing interviews. And I know that when we've had discussions before, you're very clear that there are two types of interviews that are being provided to the Western media. One is the internal, and one is external. Could you sort of expound on that for the audience?